I'm embarrassed that I was 2 miles from that park and I did not get there to stand with those protesters. Well, I'll tell you what, Donald Trump, every member of this co-equal body should condemn what this president did, trampling upon the most sacred right of this nation to assemble, to petition, to protest. What this president did was to make a mockery of our civil rights. I say ours. I was not there in that park, but every one of us should wish we were there. And I'm telling you right now, if Donald Trump wants to gas someone next time, start right here. If he wants to shoot somebody with our federal officials with rubber bullets, start right here. If he wants to trample them with horses while they peacefully assemble, come to this body. Because what he did to those Americans in that square yesterday, he did to all of us. Shame on him to stand and hold up the Bible of our faith, of a man who understood humility, our Savior, who stood up against power misuse, who stood up against every instinct that he showed yesterday. And so today, the least we can do as a body is not to remain silent. That is shame, but to speak out against it.
Senator Cory Booker from the great state of New Jersey speaking today in Washington. Joining us now is Senator Booker. Senator, I really appreciate you making the time to be here tonight with everything that's going on. Thanks for making time to be here.
Thank you, Rachel, always.
Let me ask you your perception of how things are in your home state of New Jersey. We've seen some really interesting dynamics at work in your home city of Newark, where you were mayor and where you grew up. And I feel like New Jersey has been hurting, particularly because of coronavirus, but with also these protests. It's been an interesting dynamic at work in your state.
Yeah, it's we're seeing the 1918 pandemic happened at the same time of the Great Depression, which are unemployment in urban areas just like that, combined with the unrest of the 1960s. And I think that what I've seen in Newark and Camden and cities that have gotten a lot of attention because of the way that the folks have pulled together. They felt the need to protest, but they've really tried to keep things and keep people, often outsiders from our community, from coming in and resorting to tactics that we still have scars from the challenges of the past. So I just love my community. I love the spirit they've evidenced, and I love the sort of relentless commitment to struggle and to protest and to push and to fight through hell, and at the same time demand that we do better.
Tell me about the remarks that you made today and your feelings about the president's actions, both the decision that he has made to call in active duty U.S. troops to be used on U.S. soil against the American people, and also the decision that was made apparently by Attorney General Bill Barr yesterday to clear protesters out of that park specifically so the president could go pose for photographs.
You know, I've tried my best this last week or two to not make it about him, to say very publicly, he does not have the power to break my heart, to take my attention, to make him the focus of it, which he and his ego seem to want, and to make it instead George Floyd, make it these courageous protesters who are pushing and demanding that our nation live up to its values and its ideals, to the millions of Americans who are finding ways to speak out and be activists. That's where the power of this nation is. But yesterday he pushed himself and made decisions that were such a moral affront. I was born in D.C. My parents came here after graduating from historically black colleges, and it was activists in this city that helped them get their first jobs. My mom, who worked for the D.C. public schools, helped to organize a March on Washington, peaceful demonstrations. That's the part of the very DNA from which I sprang. And to see what he did to people who have come to the city to protest for their religious freedom, their Second Amendment rights, to LGBTQ rights, this is those forums where we come together and peacefully protest. And he has trampled upon those traditions. He has offended our ancestors. He has undermined the very sort of sacred values we hold. And for a guy in one breath to call protesters thugs And for him to do the thuggest, most bulliest, most cowardice of things, all for what? Because he had an urgent place to be, because he was dealing with some national security crisis? No, so he could saunter across that park that he cleared with tear gas and horses and stand in front, awkwardly stand in front of hollow ground of a church and hold up a Bible for a photo op. It's insulting on so many levels. It's hurtful on so many levels, when there are so many more issues that we should be focused on, that you and I should be talking about. And so I took time today and did what I didn't want to do, at a time that I want to be talking about police accountability, at a time I want to be talking about violence against black bodies, at a time that I want to be talking about the intimate connections between Americans that demand our love, because without that, we will have violence, we will have hurt, we will all be damned if we can't manifest in our laws. Because, as one of my heroes says, what does love look like in public? It looks like justice. But no, instead of talking about those issues, he finds yet another way to push deeper into the muck and the despair and the gutter that he seems to want to drag the whole country down into. And so I just reject that, and I call upon my colleagues today, with every ounce of my fiber of my being, to just condemn those actions. Let's at least come together and say what he did was wrong.
Because of the way the president does seem to sort of revel in this, and because of the political common wisdom that says that he may be able to do with this what Nixon did in 1968. When he got elected, in terms of turning scenes of despair and violence in the country to his political advantage, trying to make the country turn hardline and regressive, specifically because of fear and because of concerns about the kind of scenes that we've seen over these past 8 days. I have to ask, because you are such a sharp political mind above all the, amid all the other things you are, Senator, how you think this ends, and whether or not your party, the Democratic Party, the presidential campaign of Joe Biden, can turn this around so that this is an engine for progressive political change rather than the kind of regressiveness that I think the president is hoping for here.
Well, look, I want to say, first of all, I love Joe, and I'm going to do everything I can. But this is so much bigger than Joe Biden, and it's so much bigger than Donald Trump. And I don't think this is a referendum on him, on Donald Trump. I think this election is a referendum on us, on who we are as a society. This is a moral moment. And there have been ones that have been, and I get schooled by my elders all the time, there have been moral moments like this before, where we faced down people that wanted to do things so despicable. Bull Connor, George Wallace. I could go through people that used eerily similar tactics that he used in a park yesterday to dispel protesters. So we answered those moral moments. We rose to those moments of challenge in our country. We haven't finished yet. The arc has not fully been completed, but we spring from, my very existence in this body springs from our ancestors who met the darkness with their light, who met the most seemingly impossible odds with a moral imagination that was extraordinary and ignited the engagement of others. And so that's where we are. This is a referendum on us. Will we surrender to him and his tactics? And will we throw up our hands? Or will we buckle down and double down and bring the best of who we are? That powerful alchemy that somehow turns concrete and stubborn, sclerotic, unmovable challenges into progress for our nation. That's what we need, that kind of spiritual alchemy, that kind of creative love, that kind of unrelenting action. And I put my bet on the people of this country, the good people of this country, over this president any day of the week. And what the people in the streets right now, peacefully protesting, are trying to show yet again in American history and in global history is that always, I don't care if they're dictators, I don't care if they're illegitimately elected individuals, I don't care if they're people that were elected by a minority like he was. They always show time and time again, when activists ignite other people to be activists, that get people off the sidelines, they will always show that the power of the people is greater than the people, or in this case, the person in power.
Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. Senator, it is always good to talk with you, but especially tonight. Thank you for being here, sir. It's an honor.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
All right.